When you start going within and you have a grasp of who you are and what you're all about and your value, what other people do or don't do doesn't bother you as much because you know the truth of you.
Welcome to the Core Happiness Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Banks, a mindset and positive psychology coach. On this podcast, we discuss all things related to creating happiness from within. So let's do it. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Aura E. Martinez, a self-discovery and empowerment coach, a TEDx speaker, the creator of the Aura Blueprint, and the author of Creating a Lifetime of Wellness. Aura helps women find clarity and live intention and fulfillment every single day, and she is here to share that wisdom with us. This episode is filled with so many gems and aha moments, and we hope you enjoy it. Let's dive in. Aura, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start off on what inspired you to dedicate your life to helping others discover themselves more deeply, because I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with in terms of self-identification, but to dedicate your life to genuinely helping others. How did that come about?
Yes. Well, I started out as a wellness and life coach, helping people get out of the sugar roller coaster they will find themselves in. Because I used to be certified as a holistic nutritionist and also as a nutrition and wellness consultant. And so I noticed that the clients would come to me and they didn't need a meal plan. They didn't need an exercise plan, none of that. They were actually having a relationship with food and their body. And that's what was getting in the way of them choosing healthier options when it comes to food and them working out. And just analyzing their journey and also my journey with weight loss, because I used to weigh 100 and what, 40 pounds. And I lost all that and went to 112 pounds. If we were to get to the core of who we really are, what makes us who we are, what triggers us, we can literally transform several areas of ourselves and our life simultaneously. And this is because we are the common denominator of absolutely everything in our life, everything. And so our relationship with ourselves is what determines the relationship that we have with everything, whether that is money, whether that is food, whether that is workout, whether that is with time, believe it or not. And so the more we manage ourselves, the more we understand ourselves, know how we flow, we can choose better, we can do better, we can live better. That's the reason why I transitioned to doing the work that I currently do as a self discovery and empowerment coach.
That's beautiful. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think that when we have that level of self-awareness, it changes everything. It
Yeah.
changes not only how we interact with ourselves, but then how that self-love comes out into the world. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you emphasize the importance of self-awareness, self-love, self-respect as the foundation for the fulfilling life. But can you talk about what that inner journey looks like in real terms, like in real life terms?
It looks messy at
Mm-hmm.
times, it is uncomfortable, right? But yet it is so fulfilling. And I'm going to compare this to like when we travel abroad, right? When we travel abroad, we want to see all the places, the good and the ugly, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to be
Mm-hmm.
doing the same with ourselves because I believe that that is the key to the happiness that we seek, the love that we seek. And so, in the process of that inner journey, there will be times that it's going to look messy because we're going to see things about ourselves that we're going to be like, oh, this is me. Oh my gosh, I don't think I like this about myself. It's going to be uncomfortable because it can be so uncomfortable to see certain parts of ourselves. It could be so uncomfortable for us to actually admit that the reason why our life may be the way it is because of the actions that we take or because there's something that we need to release. And so I think when it comes to the inner journey, it's about embracing and knowing that the beautiful comes with the ugly, right? There's going to be contrast, but all of that is necessary. because it will lead to the self love that you're seeking. It will lead to the self respect that you're seeking. It's all connected.
I absolutely love that you said that it's messy. And I love it because I think that's what scares a lot of people. I think people get into the mindset of, wait a minute, that feels uncomfortable. And now I'm feeling out of my comfort zone. So I need to revert back to what feels comfortable and what feels safe because I know it. And I don't like the messy. The messy seems like it shouldn't be happening. But I think, like you said, that is part of the process. It's part of the journey. It's part of that discovery.
And can I share something else too? Another part of my journey.
Of course.
So my parents are from Dominican Republic, and I was
Mhm.
considered an Afro Latina, having African roots. And so my hair is very curly. And I'm gonna admit, at one point, I hated my hair. Now, at this point, now I wear my hair however way I want. If I want it straight, if I want it curly, doesn't even matter. But once upon a time, I hated that part of myself, right? And it took me going to an in-person event. It was in an in-person event. It was a personal development slash business conference that I realized that there was a part of me that I needed to embrace. And mind you, to the degree that we hate any part of ourselves, it is going to be reflected in other areas of our lives. So it was reflected in even the money that I was making in business. Can you believe this? And I want people to pay attention. This is so valuable, what I'm about to share. Because at the time I hated that part of me, it was hard for me to be visible online. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? So I was hiding behind a blog,
I can.
right? And it reflected in the choices I would make when it came to men. So interesting enough, the men were reflecting to me my lack of self-love. So anytime you see certain patterns in your life, it's so important for you to take a step back. And this is not about pointing fingers, but really pointing it to yourself to the point of being curious. What part of me am I supposed to look at that I haven't looked at? And I'm going to tell you this, healing that part of myself was so damn messy. It was so messy, but I saw the light after that. It was so hard because I cried so much and I was angry too because I was like, society taught us this and society taught us that. So I share that story because I want people to know that when you are in this path, there will be moments of difficulty, but I promise you that once you pass that, whoo, that's where the transformation starts to happen in your life.
Well, you completely hit the nail on the head. I mean, I have multiple things on this because I'm wondering where that stems from a lot of people. And I will say on a personal note that I went through the same thing. Like even with the podcast and even taking it visual, I was like, I don't want to put my face out there, and I think it was one of those things where I had to look at myself for the first time, really, because I didn't think that I had issues with confidence in my life. It didn't seem to come up in a day to day where there was a lack of confidence. But when I was faced with, wait, I have to actually put my face out there, I have to put video out there, I had to look at why that mattered so much. And I think for me, it was more of the fact of, the internet can be sometimes a cruel place. And I don't want people to, attack me for whatever, just because of I look a certain way or if I don't look a certain way or whatever it is. And then I had to look at, but why do I care about what random people that I don't know or have never met think? And why is that stopping me from proceeding with something that I want to do? And like, what's driving that fear? And so I'm wondering with you being an Afro Latino, and especially like when you have the curly hair and you wanted to straighten it, like, where do you think that comes from? Do you think that that is conditioning? Do you think it's stuff that we have learned or that we've seen? Is it society pressures? What do you think it
Oh
is?
my God. In my case, I already knew it was culture and societal conditioning. So unfortunately, in
Okay.
Latin America, it's so sad to say, but we got to say it the way it is. If you have curly hair, it's considered bad hair. This notion of bad hair and how horrible that is for women of color.
Mm,
And it took me some processing. And this is why I don't watch novellas anymore. I used to watch novellas. And I always used to be curious. And look at how the conditioning happens, right? It happens in such a subtle way, but it's all pieced together. I saw that none of the women that were the protagonists looked like me. None of them did. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there were moments now in hindsight, there were moments where I was like, why don't they look like me? Is there something wrong with me? Back then, I didn't think that this was the look of success.
Mm.
And so, what we don't realize is that when we have all those things underneath creeping, trust me when I tell you, it's going to affect the choices that you make. So, I knew that for me, it was cultural because in Latin America, if you have curly hair, it's bad hair, right? The straighter your hair, the more good it is. And societal, because I think in
Mhm,
society that we have been
mhm,
conditioned to. And so I must say this, none of us were born with lack of self-esteem. None of us were born. If you look at kids, all kids are born confident about themselves. I mean, they don't mind running around in diapers and no shirt. They don't care if their hair is messy or all over the place. So who we are, we learn to be this way. And so if we want to get to the core of who we really are, and this is what I think personal development is all about. It's not about you becoming something that you're not. It's more about undoing, unlearning, unraveling so that you can find yourself.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that it is getting underneath all of the layers. I like to say that when people are like, gosh, I just feel stuck or I feel overwhelmed, like sometimes it's about you being buried. It's not that you're lost or whatever it is. It's maybe you're just buried under a lot of expectations and a lot of conditioning that you didn't even realize you were taking on.
Yes.
And I love that you said that about children because I think I agree. My personal opinion is that children come into this world and they are self-aware in a way that I think that we lose touch of over time and we become more self-conscious. And self-conscious is just not a thing that kids have. That's learned over time. And then we start to become self-conscious teens. So it's all of these little micro things that happen over time that create this conditioning. And so I wholeheartedly agree, like that has to be unlearned at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that we're talking about this too, because um, I think when a lot of people, and I kind of alluded to this before, get uncomfortable, they want to go back into something that's comfortable and safe. But it's funny because as I'm listening to you, it's that realization of the more uncomfortable something seems, if you lean into that,
Mhm.
that actually would be the thing that gives you the clarity. It will be the thing that gives you the confidence. It's almost essentially solving the problem if you lean into the thing that makes you feel a little uncomfortable.
That's where the gold is. That's where the gold is. And I think that we have been also conditioned to run away from what's uncomfortable. And we can't do that. When something triggers you, there's gold there. This is all about you, right? When it comes to your inner journey. When you want to do something, but you notice, okay, somehow I want to do it, but it's hard for me to do it. And I don't know why. There's a layer of fat there that needs to be removed. There's gold there. So the more we lean into that, the more we lean into our frustrations, the more we lean into all those emotions and all those things that make us uncomfortable, I'm telling you, there is gold there. As a matter of fact, I think that the key to our happiness is understanding ourselves to such a deep level that your inner guidance system, which we all have it, is so clear to you, you're not questioning it. To the degree that we're questioning it, like you had mentioned before, you are buried. There are layers to be removed. There are things there that needs to be uncovered.
What do you say to people who think that self discovery or even self exploration is a luxury that they don't have time for?
It's actually a necessity. So I want to share a little tip and secret here because people, when they see me, they're like, oh my God, are you really this happy? This is how I am legit. Not because I was born this way. Yes, I've always been smiley, but because I have structures in place, I have systems in place. I give myself that me time. I take that moment in the morning to connect with myself. to understand what am I feeling, what is going on within me. Especially with apart from being a self-discovery and empowerment coach and a speaker, I'm also a flight attendant. Been a flight attendant now is going to be for 18 years. And I get it all the time. Are you really this happy? Oh my God, you're really this happy. Well, you know why I'm really this happy? Because in the morning, I check in with myself, especially when I'm jet lagged. I check in with myself. Okay, how am I feeling? What does aura need right now? Okay, I'm tired. Okay, so what do you need from me? Okay, you need more deep breaths, right? Sounds like I'm talking to myself, but we're constantly talking to ourselves, anyways, constantly talking to ourselves. I think it's so important too. I'm gonna dare to say this, to have an outlet. One of the things that I've noticed, and all we have to do is look all around us, right? The level of stress that many may feel, even anger, right? When people get pissed off at
Mm-hmm,
any little
mm-hmm.
thing. I think that there's a lack of recharge, and it's because a lot of people don't have outlets. And what do I mean with that? And I'm not comparing ourselves to batteries, even though we are somewhat like batteries because we have the capacity to generate energy. It's so important when you have so much going on that you have something where you are also releasing what's going on. So, me personally, for those that may be wondering, okay, how do you release? I have a journal. I don't journal every single day, but definitely when something is going on within me, I like to journal. And the purpose for that is for me to dump because I certainly don't like dumping on people, right? And you see that in
Mm-hmm.
relationships sometimes. And I'm going to say this, when you want healthy relationships, it starts with you. And it starts with you being healthy. You having systems in place. One of my systems, I journal, right? Because that serves as a dump. And that also serves as a way for me to look at what I wrote before and gain insights. Because we have the answers to everything we need, but we forget that. Also, it's so important to have structures in place that fills you up mentally, fills you up spiritually, whatever that is. Is it a walk in nature? Is it listening to something that fills you up like this podcast? So giving, pouring into yourself mentally, emotionally, as much as possible is so important. God knows I have to do that, especially if I'm constantly around people, right? You know, I'm saying that in a funny way, but it's so true.
So true. It is so true.
It is so true. And so, because I take care of me, I'm able to be my best version for others. When you take care of you, this is why it's so important to have a healthy dose of selfishness. Selfishness doesn't have to be a bad thing. You have a healthy dose. To a degree that you feel good, then you can give goodness to others.
It's important that you said that because I want people listening to understand we do talk about things like journaling and, gratitude journals or just for release, just for anxiety, just for stress management. And I know in my own practice and when I'm talking to clients, they'll say, I'm just not big into journaling. I've tried it. I can't get into it. And I think people miss the point of it, right? So I like that you said that journaling is a form of release. I know I had this one client who was very against journaling. And it was like, okay, well, if you don't like taking the time to write, then maybe take the time to just record into a voice memo. But the point is you have to have some level of release. And it took her a little bit, but then she finally just was like, you know what, I'll try it. I'll try it. And it truly was life changing for her. What she realized, because at first it was like, I don't have time. I'm with my son. Working. Everybody relies on me at work. I'm a single parent. But then it was, let's find 5 minutes of quiet time. And then once she was able to actually do that, she was like, it's amazing how the things that I thought I needed answers for or were confused about started coming out. And it was much more clear. And I found myself being less anxious and less angry. But it is just about having that release sometimes.
Oh,
I
yes.
absolutely love that you said that because I think that people just miss the purpose of things like journaling, but it's to have the structures, like you said. Your book, Creating a Lifetime of Wellness, feels like a roadmap of aligning all the different parts of our being. So, physical, emotional, mental, all the things that go into self discovery. Can you explain first, like, what inspired you to write it? And then can you also break down why it's important to touch on all of those areas?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Interesting enough, and I even have the book here. I have it numbered because I used it for a presentation, creating a lifetime of wellness. Start having the life you deserve. Interesting enough, I published this before pandemic. And the first chapter is you need an oasis. And that oasis that I was referring to is your home. I think after pandemic, especially with the increase of divorce, I mean, let's keep it real. People now, I think, realize how important it is for your home to be an oasis. And some of the things that I touch on in the book, apart from you need an oasis, is you need to know what your needs are, choosing your partner right, choosing your friends right, choosing work that you love. It's a whole host of things. And the reason why all these things matter is because they all influence your overall well being. You need a peaceful home. You need a home where you can recharge. Who you choose as a partner. Oh my God, I think who you choose as a partner. I think after pandemic, I think people understand the value of that. If you want the happiness that you seek, it's not just taking care of your body. I think we have been conditioned to thinking, oh, it's only if I take care of my mindset. It's only if I take it. It all matters. But at the end of the day, in this book, one of the things that I encourage it is self discovery. That's like the basis of it. In each chapter, like for example, the home, what colors make you feel good? What does what does a peaceful home consist of for you? I think a lot of people make choices and they don't think about how things affect them, how colors affect them,
Mhm.
right? Knowing what your needs are. What do you need from a job? What do you need out of yourself? What do you need out of friends? Do your friends inspire you? Do your friends make you feel good? I think that all of these things that seem so small, they're not small because all of it plays a role in how we feel overall.
Mhm.
I think there's no way you can create a lifetime of wellness if you don't have that understanding of how things affect you and what do you need out of yourself and what do you need out of this. The choices that you're making. I touch on sleep as well. Sleep is so important. So to me, everything that is discussed in this book, everything matters. But the basis of it at the end of the day is self discovery because at the end of the day, we're all different. Not everybody functions on 8 hours of sleep. Some people function with less, some people function better with more. So it's you understanding yourself so, so fully. And that's what I encourage in the book. And interesting enough, life is more complex now than it was before pandemic, but still everything that's in
Mhm.
this book is still valid today.
I was actually thinking that because life is just full of transitions. It's full of unknowns, but it's also full of transitions. And it's anything from career shifts, which we saw happen with the pandemic, it's relationships, which we saw happen with the pandemic, identity shifts, where I tell people sometimes who you were pre pandemic is not who you were post pandemic.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you grow as an individual. And so I'm wondering, how would you reposition those transitions or maybe what are seen as challenges as opportunities versus roadblocks?
I think there has been so many changes on a society,
Mm.
on a societal level, and also on an individual level. I think life isn't life without change. And I think it's so important that we have that on the forefront, as challenging as that may be.
Mhm.
And I think during transitions and challenges and changes, it's so important, first and foremost, that we give ourselves grace. The more we're going through and the more changes that are going on in our physical life, the more grace we need to give ourselves. Because I know God knows I can sometimes be so hard on myself. Why isn't this working this way? It's supposed to work this way. And it's like, no, you got to give yourself a lot of grace. And also, another G word, allow yourself to grieve. I think
Mm,
after pandemic, there was a lot of grieving, and not just because of physical death, as in the passing of people, but also the grief of the endings of relationships, whether that was romantic relationships or marriages or even friendships, even family members.
absolutely.
And so,
Yes.
one of the things that I'm coming into terms with, especially since my dad passed in 2016, and my mom was hit really hard because they knew each other since they were 11 years old. They're from the same town. And she's still grieving him, even though he passed in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Part of life is grieving. And we even grieve the different stages that we go through, believe it or not. And so, with that, it's so important that A, we become adaptable. And I think to become adaptable, we need to have the mindset for that. When we can understand that life is a constant change and that life is a constant pivot, and what is today may not be tomorrow, but that's still okay. Life is full of
Mm-hmm.
beginnings and full of endings. And another hard thing for us to like digest, right? But that's just part of it. And so we need to learn to be adaptable. And I find that the more we connect with ourselves and with our emotions and what's going on in our inner world, the more we can navigate through the changes, through whatever grief we may be going through. And and therefore we're able to adapt. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying, it's not as simple, right? It could be messy. It could be
I was just
challenging.
about to say that goes back to the
Yeah.
messy.
It's not easy. It can be messy, but having that connection with yourself and understanding, okay, what am I feeling? How is this affecting me? How am I thinking about my life right now? But sometimes we don't realize that our perception, how we're viewing what we're going through, how we're viewing what we're experiencing, also causes us more grief, believe it or not, than necessary.
That is so true. First, I think it's important for people to hear that it's okay to
Yeah.
grieve. One of the things that I've seen consistently over time is that when the time should be taken to grieve something, people just want to push through it because it's uncomfortable. Grief is painful. Grief is can be all consuming sometimes. And so people have this, I think it's kind of like the a knee jerk reaction of just I need to get through this. I need to be distracted. I need to whatever it is. And I always say it's okay to sit in that and feel it because that's part of it. That's part of getting through grief is dealing with it and feeling it and accepting it and understanding that especially after the loss of a loved one. I know the same thing with my father when he passed was understanding that grief isn't something you just get through and then it goes
Yeah,
away,
exactly.
right? Like it stays with you and you learn to grow around it and you learn how it becomes a part of you versus trying to make it something that you can just get through and leave behind.
One thing that I want to say in regards to that, one of the biggest mistakes that I made after my dad had passed, I didn't want to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we don't realize is that what we don't want to feel, it needs an outlet. And when we don't have an appropriate outlet, we may choose outlets that actually harm us rather than help us. So, me, all the weight that I had lost, I almost gained it all back. The point is this: I didn't realize that I did not grieve him until 2020, when in November of 2020, I had to hire a grief coach that specializes also in caretaking. And the very first coaching session that I had with her, I'm so grateful that she said this to me. She was like, "Did you realize that you never grieved your dad?" The reason why I had hired her is because my mom then started feeling very, very sick and it was just too much to handle. And so the person that I was working with at the time suggested that I hire someone else. And so when we do not allow ourselves to process the emotions that feel uncomfortable, it has a way of literally eating us up because I was using
Mm-hmm.
food to numb that emotion. And how many times do we not use things to numb what we're feeling, whether that is alcohol, right? Or overworking? There's so many ways that seem healthy, but they're actually harmful. And so it's so important to allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling.
And the same, I can say that now because when I went through it, I was the same way. I was, how do I numb this? And for me, it was all work.
Right.
I threw myself into
Yeah.
work. I was working full time in a corporation at the time, and I threw myself into work, and they gave me a raise and like a promotion all in 6 months because of all the work that I had done in six
Mhm.
months. But I also completely burned myself out. And it was one of those moments where I couldn't keep pushing my body physically as a way to distract myself. But once I hit that brick where it was like, okay, I can't keep doing this, I really did have to sit in those feelings and acknowledge them and feel them and move through it. And then that's when I was like, oh, this was part of it all along. I shouldn't have been pushing it away. I shouldn't have been working myself through it. I should have been doing this the entire time. Like that's the healthiest way to deal with it. What are some strategies that you recommend for staying grounded and resilient, especially when life becomes overwhelming?
Well, one of the things I definitely do is journaling because that helps a lot. I
Mhm.
think one of the other things that I would say is, and for this, you got to know yourself. What fills your cup up? Like, what fills
Mhm.
your cup up? And do that on a consistent basis if necessary. Find the time for it. For me, I love reading. So that's one way to fill my cup up because it's just me, myself, and I. I'm an introvert, right? Nature grounds us. I think we take for granted nature, and nature is so, so grounding. So whether that is going to the beach and like placing your feet on the sand and watching the water, or going to the park, right? And hugging a tree, whatever it is, but really give yourself that time to be with nature.
Mhm.
Now, I got to say this because I started out as a wellness and life coach, and I do have my background in nutrition. It's so important that we are mindful that we're eating foods that give you life. So I've noticed, at least for me, and I don't know if it's the fact that I have done a lot of work on myself that I'm able to sense this, as silly as this is about to sound, but there's an
Mhm.
energy to food. And so when you're eating foods that are processed, you're gonna feel like that processed food versus when you're eating the clean foods, when you're eating the whole fruit, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel alive. So the reason why I'm sharing that is to be mindful of the types of foods that you are putting in your body, because believe it or not, that is affecting your mental state. That is affecting your
Mhm.
physical and your emotional state, your energy levels. Speaking of energy, minimize the things that lower your energy. Be mindful of what drains your energy. Because sometimes we think that it's doing a lot that drains our energy. No, not necessarily. When you're doing a lot of the things that you love and that lights you up, you will feel good. But when you're doing, even if it's one thing that's draining your energy, you're gonna feel exhausted. It's gonna create a crack that no matter how much you're filling your cup up, the water is still leaking. So be mindful of the things that leak your energy. All of these
Mhm.
things play a role in us being grounded. Being mindful of the conversations we are having. I want to say this. It may sound like one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. But haven't you noticed that if you're speaking with someone that all they're talking about is problems and negativity, after the conversation, you're like, oh my God, I'm tired and I don't even know why I'm tired, right? That's going to take you out of your grounding.
Mhm.
We don't realize how the things that we're doing on a consistent basis are the things that are taking us from being grounded. It needs to be a lifestyle, personally, I think.
It's funny that you say that. I did an episode, I think it was like last year or maybe even the year before, but I talked about energy transference. And it's exactly what you're describing is when you are at work and you're dealing with a difficult coworker, or you get off the phone with maybe a parent who's maybe a narcissist and you find yourself having to coddle, or you get off the phone with a friend that is just kind of going on and on and on and only talking about themselves and they don't really check in with you. And then the end of all of those things, you just feel drained. And there gets energy transference to where the person is drained, given you negative energy, offloaded the negative energy to you. You in turn have given them positive energy. So after the exchange, they feel
Mhm.
great. And then you feel completely drained. And it's funny because I know clients sometimes are like, well, what do I do? Like, do I just not talk to these people? Do I stay away? Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it does require limiting that, right? But then the other thing, like you're saying, is you have to figure out how to reground yourself, how to get that positive energy back. And if you don't have that, then it just becomes that you're feeling drained and you're walking around with these low
Yeah,
vibrations while we're talking about
yeah,
energy, right? And low vibrations attract more low
yeah,
vibrations. So it's important that you have to raise your
yes.
vibration after something that lowers it. So that is 100% true.
And we don't sometimes, especially if we haven't done the work, because I mean, I was not always like this, right? I was once upon a time the person that would watch the news at night. I was once upon a time the
Mhm.
person that would just engage in any kind of conversation, even if it was gossipy. And believe it or not, even gossip lowers your vibration. There's nothing that is being added to you. And so you add all of that up, plus if you don't have structures in place that makes you feel good, that makes you feel grounded, all of that contributes to a life where you may feel agitated and not understand why. You may feel frustrated, not understand why. And it's like when you decide to be so aware, okay, how does this make me feel? How is this affecting me? And when you honor yourself so much, you honor your energy so much, you honor what you bring, who you are, what you're all about, you just don't make time for none of that. You start having that kind of awareness and you're like, you know what? This just doesn't suit me. This
Mhm.
friendship doesn't suit me. This relationship doesn't suit me. This being in this kind of conversation doesn't suit me.
How does someone start inner work? Like, how does someone, if they're listening to this and they're like, okay, that's what I think I need this. I think I need this deep awakening. I think I need to rediscover myself or at least do some exploration. How would you say that they start?
Unfortunately, as human beings, we don't change anything until something is wrong. So it takes, and I say unfortunately because I mean, it just is what it is, right? And it would be
Mhm.
nice if we
Mhm.
knew that we all needed that awakening, that we all needed to do that unlearning, undoing, and unraveling. But it always takes, I've noticed, something to go wrong, something that doesn't feel right, or even going after a goal and then noticing certain obstacles, certain, challenges, right? And then for those that are realizing, okay, this is no longer suiting me, there's something that isn't clicking in my life, start asking the better questions. Okay, why does this not suit me? Why does this
Mhm.
make me feel a certain way? Why is this way? Like, because the questions that we ask ourselves, those are the kind of those are the kind of answers we're gonna get, right? And then if doing that inner work is so challenging and so difficult, then hire someone, whether that is a coach or a therapist, but hire that person to start that journey, to start that work. Because I find that the more we wake up to ourselves, the happier we are, the better choices we make, the
Mhm.
stronger boundaries we
Mhm.
set, the better we allow. We have been taught that we need to pay attention to what we attract, because that's going to determine who we are. And I would dare to say, it doesn't even matter who you are. We all attract good and bad. What determines what's really important is what we allow. It's not so much what we are attracting, but what we are allowing. And so this is why I say that we allow better the more we do the inner work.
And it sounds like it really just is tuning into
Yeah.
yourself. Like you're just being aware of, okay, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Why? And then if this feels off,
Yeah.
why? Like it's really just kind of being aware enough to say this feels off or this is uncomfortable. And then just asking yourself, why? Or thinking about what it could possibly be.
Being curious.
Yeah.
Being curious. We were
Yeah.
curious as kids. We need to be curious as adults.
And your philosophy is master yourself, master your life,
Yeah.
which is incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
What does that look like in action to you?
When you want to have mastery of anything outside of you, it first starts with mastering you, right? Mastering your thoughts, mastering your feelings. Now, mastering is not about controlling, but more so everything that I have been encouraging, the self-awareness, the understanding yourself, attending to your own needs, knowing what you need. The more you have dominion of yourself, that's when you start having dominion of everything else. Again, when I'm on that plane and people see me all happy and jolly and whatnot, I'm genuinely like that because I make sure I connect with myself. I make sure I give myself what I need. I make sure I have that moment where I'm filling my own cup up. I always wake up earlier in the morning when I'm in a layover precisely because of that. Because I'm like, okay, I want to check in with myself. I want to journal a little bit. I want to feel good. I want to prep myself. I want to determine the outcome of my day. And what do I mean with that? When I say determine the outcome, that doesn't mean that I'm going to determine what someone else does, but I'm going to determine how I feel. I'm going to determine how I respond. I'm going to determine what I do. All that is you mastering yourself. You need that in order to master your life. The people that are successful, they're successful because they have mastery of themselves. They have the mindset. They're responding to things. They're not reacting. So this is why I say that in order to master your life, you have to master yourself.
I know often we tend to look
Mhm.
externally, like we look outside for validation or direction or clarity. And I'm wondering with the Master Yourself, Master Your Life, how does turning that shift inward change the outcomes that we experience externally? So it's almost like a shift of instead of things externally validating internally, how does the internal change external?
When you start going within and you have a grasp of who you are and what you're all about and your value, what other people do or don't do doesn't bother you as much, if not at all. The no's won't discourage you because you know the truth of you. You know, one of the things that I like to say, there's three elements to a purposeful living, to a purposeful life, and that is the being, the doing, and the vision. The first on the top is the being. There's no doing without the being, meaning your mind, your emotions, your inner world. All of that needs to be in sync and you need to hold on to that. From that being comes your vision. When you have that two so solid, that doing is easy. It's easy to do the things that you got to do in order to manifest that vision. I know I went on a longer route, but I think these examples are so real and they illustrate what I'm wanting to say.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. All of it's beautiful. And I absolutely loved those 3 points because that is so true. And I never even thought about it in that perspective. But the way you've summarized it really actually just simplifies manifestation. That's
Oh,
beautiful. I know that you also have the Aura Blueprint. Can you tell us how that helps people gain clarity on their path or on their journey?
yes. So that's my methodology, and it has my name for a reason. And the first step in the Aura blueprint, or the A, is assess. We're going to assess where you are now, where you would like to be, and what is required in order to manifest that, right? In order to close that gap. And I like to compare this to like, and I use a lot the airport and the whole airline and the whole, because I think it's a beautiful analogy, right? Pilots before every flight, they need to ensure that plane is ready for that journey, right? They have the map. They know what route they're going to take. They know what city they're at, where they're heading, right? And they need to check the inside of the plane and the outside of the plane because they need to make sure that plane is ready for the journey. So you need to make sure that you are also all ready for the journey. The you in the aura blueprint is understand. It's going to be important for you to understand what has kept you stuck all this time. When you don't understand what makes you tick, what keeps you stuck, you're bound to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. When I was in the journey of losing weight, I already knew, okay, when I'm stressed, I eat. When I'm this, I eat. Okay, so in order to transition, let me make sure I take my emergency snacks, right? It's part of the preparation. The R in the aura blueprint is realign. When you, and by the way, the you, part of the you is also undoing, unpeeling, unraveling. That's so important. So you could get to the core of who you really are. Then the R, now I'm going to move to the R, is realign. Once you've done all that work and unraveled, okay, I understand what triggers, what this, what that, this has kept me stuck, whatever. It's going to be important that you align yourself with the essence of who you really are. And the reason why that's very important, if you still stuck in your old identity, in who you have always been, the chances of you going back to the bad habits, going back to your default mode, it's a lot higher. You need to realign with the version of you that you see yourself being, that you see yourself in the future, right? And A in the aura blueprint is aliveness, because that's what you're gonna feel, right? Once you start being who you've been designed to be, once you start manifesting all the things that you want to manifest. So that's the aura blueprint in essence.
I love it.
Me
I
too.
absolutely love that. And I just want to ask you too, because I feel like part of the Aura blueprint is just being able to live fully, yes, but it's also being able to live to the max. Like fully, I feel very fulfilled, but I think living to the max can mean many different things to many
Yes.
different people. So, what does living to the max mean to you personally today, now that you've done all of the work?
To me, living to the max is living fully according to the stage that we're also in our life. Because we got to remember, we all go
Mm,
through stages in life. So when you're living
mhm.
fully, I mean, you're living according to your essence. You're living according to who you are. You're doing things from a place of love. And when I say love, there's two states, either love or fear. You're not doing things from a state of fear. You're not doing things because you have to. It's you're being you and you're loving you and you're living on your terms, however those terms look like. So indeed, living to the max is going to be different for everyone. So it's so important that you know yourself, that you know what you need in the stage in your life. How does this stage of your life look like for you and live according to that?
Beautiful. Do you have any closing words for our listeners? Is there any important or lasting message that you want to leave with them?
You are the answer that you're seeking. Be curious about your inner world. Be so curious because that holds the key to absolutely everything in your life. Be so connected with yourself. That too is the key to creating that lifetime of wellness.
Laura, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
here.
thank you.
I thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to rate it or leave a review. If you have any thoughts or questions, I would love to hear from you. You can email podcast@corehappiness.com. For show notes and additional resources, you can visit www.corehappiness.com. As always, please remember, never let anyone diminish your light. Until next time, sending you my love.